Amy, let me tell you about a magical place that is so exactly designed to be enclosed space, year-round fun for the whole family that I bet you already know what I'm going to say before I even say the name. Let's say it together on 3. 1, 2, 3. Great Wolf Lodge. You got it, Amy.
My kids loved Great Wolf Lodge when we went. You probably already know that it has a huge indoor water park with a wave pool, lazy river, a bunch of massive water slides. But then your pack can hit the other attractions because, wait, there's more.
Great Wolf Lodge has adventure-packed attractions like Magi Quest, a live-action game kids can play throughout the lodge, plus the Northern Lights Arcade. Spent some quality time there, so your kid who loves the lazy river and your kid who loves fantasy games will both have a great time.
Great Wolf Lodge also offers great dining options and complimentary daily events like nightly dance parties, all under one roof. Unpack the car once and you're settled in to have fun. And with 22 lodges across the country, you're always a short drive away from adventure.
We've both had such great times at Great Wolf Lodge, so bring your pack together at a lodge near you. Learn more at greatwolf.com and strengthen the pack. There are different modes of operation and outcomes for kids.
What fresh hell?
Laughing in the face of motherhood.
Don't feel guilty that your kid is nicer for your parenting partner than for you.
With Margaret Abels
and Amy Wilson.
We are here from the future.
A podcast that solves today's parenting dilemmas
so you don't have to.
Just when you figure it out, it'll change again. Hey, everybody. Welcome to What Fresh Hell, Laughing in the Face of Motherhood. This is Amy.
And this is Margaret. And today we are discussing what happened to my sweet child. Sweet child of mine.
Axl Rose was not talking about a 4-year-old, apparently. He was talking about maybe a 2-year-old, maybe a 7-year-old, not a 4-year-old.
Whatever he was talking about, it was before the change to darkness.
It was before the change. This is an extremely universal experience that all of us have had. I'm going to argue multiple times with each of our children that something happens all of a sudden and they're very dysregulated. But this is a topic that came from Amy in our Facebook group. Different Amy.
You're not seeding our Facebook group with questions.
Any group of women of a certain age is going to be at least 2 Amy's. This is other Amy for this purpose of this episode. And she went to our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/whatfreshhellcast. It's 7,000 parents talking about parenting, talking about what kind of socks they should buy, having fun, being nice. We love this group of parents. Amy went to the group, but we're going to answer this question too because we want to. Amy said, my 4-year-old daughter has recently developed a special, defiant, boundary testing, aggressive version of herself that she saves only from me. I can't make sense of it at all. Amy says, I think her emotional cup is filled more often than not, and I think she has plenty of opportunities for sensory needs. What Fresh Hell, send help.
Dun, 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 dun. I'm trying to think of our What Fresh Hell theme song. The What Fresh Hell beam has gone up into the sky, and we have arrived to solve this problem.
Yes.
And as you said, first of all, something that happens at many different ages and even, spoiler alert, into the teen ages. This is still happening. And there's 2 parts of this problem. One, that it is developed. And I like that she says that she saves only for me. And I was just talking to a non-parent about one of my kids. And they were saying, oh, they're this and they're that. And I said, yeah. I mean, they save a lot for me, I will say. There are a lot of aspects of our children that we receive as their parent that maybe are not viewable to their teachers, their loved ones, other people in their lives. And so sometimes I do think the pain here is in, oh, she's so adorable and sweet. And you're like, yeah, I'm behind closed doors dealing with a maniac or a very difficult person or someone who I think sometimes it can feel that I'm getting like abuse from.
I recently have had to spend a bunch of time away from my kids who are not 4 years old, not like the other Amy. My kids are big. And so my spouse has become the primary caregiver for the last couple of weeks. And again, big kids. But still, when I came back after about 10 days away, my spouse was like, oh my God, like I need a break. We had literally switched roles. You know what I mean? I was meeting him at the door. He was meeting me at the door with his sneakers on, like, get me out of here. And I just thought, oh, it was gratifying, in some way, like, right. Now you see that when you're the one who's around all the time, you're the one that gets all the stuff thrown your way, whoever the primary caregiver is, which in our case is usually me, but not right now.
Sure, for sure. And I think sometimes underlining this piece of it has, for the other parent also, when I had 4-year-olds, my spouse was working a lot out of the house. It was pre-COVID. There was no work at home. He was out of the house 60 hours a week. And yes, I think often we had the conversation where, oh, she's so sweet. Oh, she's so funny. The way she says ambulance instead of ambulance. And I'm like, she's a monster. Right. You have to see. Like, you don't understand. I'm trapped at home all day with, the beast that you don't see.
Oh, so that's part of it. I don't even want to talk about that because I have some research that backs up. Like, that is true. And what you can't take on is feeling bad about that. Like, well, I must be doing something wrong if they're nice for everybody else except me. That's not what's happening. And it is developmentally appropriate that this stuff is happening and how it feels like it comes out of nowhere. It can come out of nowhere. And it happens, I think, way more than when they're 4, unfortunately. But I wanted to talk first about there might actually be something special that happens when they're 4 that I learned about for the first time researching this episode. So again, going back to our Facebook group, Sylvia in the comments was like, this is the limbic leap. You got to look at the limbic leap. That's what's happening here. I'm like, I've never heard of the limbic leap. Have you heard of it before?
I do want to look at the limbic leap, Sylvia.
And I will say in the comments too, other people who weren't saying, look at the limbic leap were like, exactly. And again, 4, like your mileage may vary. We might be talking about a 3.5-year-old or an almost 5-year-old, but people were falling all over themselves to agree to hit the like button on this one. There was something about 4. So anyway, I looked into the limbic leap. Do you want to hear about it?
Of course I do, Amy. I woke up this morning thinking, I hope Amy tells me about the limbic leap.
Limbic leap is a term that I found was created by developmental specialist Alana Robinson. So I looked into this. She created this notion based on her research. So she defines it as a transitional period that kids go through around the age of 4 due to a development in the limbic system of the brain. We call it red brain. Some people call it lizard brain. Other neuroscientists say that's ridiculous and it's not that simplistic, but it's the part of your brain that deals with emotions, memory, safety. It's the fight-flight part of your brain. She explains it as the brain is an electrical system, and at around 4 years old, a huge jump of neurons and synapses start getting built. There's a big leap in that activity in the amygdala, which is in the limbic system. And so much is happening that the amygdala gets super sensitive, hypersensitive, and there's a lot of electrical signals firing and maybe misfiring and causing dysregulation. So as she puts it, your 4-year-old's brain is triggering a fight or flight response for all sorts of things that are not actual threats.
And it's because the system is activating, basically. It's like learning to walk. It's like learning to have an amygdala.
Yes, that's her argument. The amygdala is like under construction when they're around 4. A lot's happening up there. So it's hypersensitive. It's turned up for what? And so they just go ham over the stupidest thing. So this is how it can play out. She says you start to notice that your child is suddenly very emotional about everything, getting tearful and angry at the slightest change, like changes in plans, right? I don't like these socks. That sort of, I don't want to sit at this, I like this napkin, whatever. They don't like it. And she argues that you might even see some regression, that your kid all of a sudden doesn't want to do things that they know how to do, that they've known how to do for a long time. They can't, they won't, they're easily frustrated with the shoes, whatever. And I thought this was interesting. She said, you'll probably find your child can't even tell you why they're upset. They're just upset. They're just melting down. And she says, I like this. I had never heard this explained this way before. That's a clear sign of stress behavior rather than misbehavior. They're not being bad if they're just like, and they can't tell you why they're upset.
A lot of the use of the word dysregulation here, which is a word that I feel saved me for a lot of this period of my life. That it's kind of like the thing that you say, like the lady says we have to leave the park. For me as a mom, dysregulation became a word that for myself became a touchstone of this is an awful child trying to ruin my life. This is dysregulation. And it felt to me like it was a little bit outside of the behavior. Like, oh, you are dysregulated, which means you are laying on the floor of Target and kicking your feet because you saw an Elmo and that has meaning for you that I don't understand. That rather than like...
And which you can't explain to me. It's just true. Right.
Right. That rather than I needed diaper lotion for your sister and you instead have chosen to ruin my life by blah, blah. Like, oh, you're dysregulated. Okay, so now we need to move a little bit faster. You need to, whatever we have to do to get out of Target is what's going to happen, not... why were you put on earth to ruin my life? Which sometimes is the story that would come up in my head instead.
And it's okay. It's okay to feel that frustration, right? I think we've gone really far in our parenting culture. I think since my kids were born 2 decades ago, my oldest one, that this has to be understood and unpacked right in the moment. So Alana Robinson says that when your kid is having their 4-year-old limbic leap moment in Target, they're supposed to work together on calming down. But of course, there are places where that's easy to do and there are places where it's not. You can't work on like, tell me 5 things you can see and tell me 4 things you can hear in the middle of Target while they're like, somebody's going to call security on you. It's not so easy.
And I don't mean this as in any sort of like blaming or shaming way, but I actually do not believe that work should happen in Target. I don't think you should ruin other people's day doing that work, basically. Like Target is get out right. And maybe you have to leave the diaper cream behind, or maybe you just grab the diaper cream and your screaming child under your arm and you get through self-checkout. But I am not interested. And I will say now I have older kids and I'm grouchy all the time because that's my personality set point. But
you've earned it.
I've earned it. But I also at the time, like I do not think that working through your child's processes in a public place where your child is betraying the social norms is a good idea. We're all understanding to a certain degree, but right now fix it because we're outside. Like on a plane, just shove graham crackers in your kid's face, basically. I don't necessarily want a half an hour of, how are you feel? Let's work together on this. I'm like, no, let's just get this tantrum dealt with here. This is some work that can happen when we're at home and other places. We don't need to work through it on other people's time, I guess I would say.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And I think maybe the let's work together on calming down when feeling stressed. Having worked on some of this stuff for myself and with my kids, the time to do it is unfortunately not when you're already stressed, right? I've been learning about meditation with one of my kids, and my kid is very resistant to it. Like, I don't like it. It's like I spend 5 minutes on it, it makes me agitated. And the person who was walking us through it was like, yeah, that's going to happen. It's going to happen for like 30 days, 60 days. It takes a while doing meditation before you find that plumb line that can take you right down to feeling relaxed. You have to do it 60 times or so before you start to be like, oh, there it is. And then it's there for you. But you can't do it when you're already stressed for the first time for 5 minutes and then decide it doesn't work. Unfortunately. So this work is to be done with storybooks and talking at times when they are calm. If you can find such a time when your kid is amidst their limbic leap.
Yeah. And I think that the idea of, I think I actually use the term with my kids, like you're super dysregulated, but we're in Target right now and we have to get this done is one approach. And then when you're home, it can be a little bit more, hey, you're super dysregulated. Let's work together to find the solution. Let's figure out how we calm these things down. And I think that's just what you're saying. When you have a word for it, and we have said red brain on the podcast or different things, like this is red brain. And listen, I have teenagers and we're still having these conversations sometimes. Like I used to make the joke with my husband, there's a scene in The Shining, right? Where he has his little pinky up and he's like, Mrs. Torrance isn't home right now. And I will say, sometimes I will see my spouse saying, you really need to calm down. And I'm like, psst, Mrs. Torrance isn't home right now. Like there's no one in there. You're not actually reaching. There's a screaming red blinking amygdala just barfing all over you right now. And to try to, in that time, be like, it's time to make a better choice. Like, no, Mrs. Torrance isn't home right now.
That's right. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, I think that this actually goes way beyond 4-year-olds, unfortunately, and there's a reason for it, and we'll talk about that after this. Hellions, it's time for some spring cleaning, and I don't just mean the coat closets. Doing your financial spring cleaning can actually be super easy when you let Monarch do your financial spring cleaning for you. One dashboard that gets your entire financial life organized. No more clutter, no more mess, no more logins scattered everywhere, just accounts, investments, property, and more, all in one place. Get your first year of Monarch for half off, just $50 with promo code FRESH. Monarch allows you to look not only at what you've already spent, but also to plan for the future. With Monarch, you can set savings goals, plan for big purchases, and notice spending trends before they become a problem. I can generate cash flow reports that show me what we spent this quarter, this month, what we're probably going to spend next month, and feel prepared, organized, and knowing how to plan for the future. No more surprises and a lot more clarity. Try Monarch. Use code FRESH at monarch.com to get your first year half off at just $50. That's 50% off your first year at monarch.com with code FRESH. My favorite skincare products actually feel more like self-care, like they're so nice to put on and they smell so good that I'm actually happy when I get to that part of my day. And I swear that is how I feel about Osea's anti-aging body balm.
Amy, you are usually the lotions and potions queen on this podcast, but I have to say, hard agree.
Osea's anti-aging body balm is a liquid silk body balm that combines the lasting hydration of a lotion with the firming power of a serum, leaving skin smoother and firmer.
This body balm is clinically tested and designed to deliver visible results you can see and feel.
So we've gotten to use this product for a couple of months now, and I swear I have really noticed firmer and smoother skin, like on the back of my hands. It's like getting a mini spa treatment from head to toe.
Get a spring-worthy glow with clean, clinically tested skincare from Osea. And right now, we have a special discount just for our listeners.
Get 10% off your first order site-wide with code FRESH at OseaMalibu.com.
That's 10% off your first order with code FRESH at OSEAMalibu.com. Amy, when I'm having a good hair day, it usually makes my whole day better. And that's why on every day, I'm taking Nutrafol.
Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist-recommended hair growth supplement brand. And it's the #1 hair growth supplement brand personally used by dermatologists. Nutrafol's hair growth supplements are peer-reviewed, NSF certified for sport, and clinically tested.
Nutrafol offers multiple formulas for men and women tailored to different life stages and lifestyle factors, so you get support that's actually right for you. Adding Nutrafol to your daily routine is easy. Order online, no prescription needed, with automated deliveries and free shipping to keep you on track.
Let your hair be one less thing to worry about. See visibly thicker, stronger, faster-growing hair in 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol.
For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you visit Nutrafol.com and enter promo code LAUGHING.
That's Nutrafol.com, spelled Nutrafol.com, promo code LAUGHING. So we've come from the future, as we like to say on this podcast. Our kids are...
We are here from the future.
Tweens and teens, and I have one who's even older than that. And so we've lived through this, and I feel like this 4-year-old thing that our listener Amy is noticing will probably come back at 6 and 9 and 11. Not to be that specific, but it comes and it goes. And it's that's typical, that kids change between times of vague regulation and times of dysregulation as they age.
Yes, and I will say for kids with ADHD, kids on the spectrum, this can sometimes be super noticeable. And if you're part of special moms networks or people who talk about this, people will often have those kind of questions like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Does this happen a lot at 6 or does this happen a lot? And people do see, and I'm not sure it's even that interesting to connect it to a specific age because I think that can vary, but certainly bursts of difficult behavior happening at specific times is something that I think we see repeat.
So there's this woman, Louise Bates Ames. She died in 1996, but she worked at the Yale Child Studies Center. And she pioneered this idea that kids switch back and forth as they age. And I tried to find the picture to show you today, and I couldn't find it because her research dates back to the 80s. But it looks like a DNA helix. It just swirls around. Imagine something that swirls around like, I don't know, like a wind chime or something, right? That's how they develop. They develop in this swirling uphill spiral staircase that has a regulation side and a dysregulation side. And as kids age, their brain grows, and then they synthesize what they've learned and how they've developed. And then there's another period of growth, another period of synthesization, and they go back and forth.
It makes a ton of sense. And
it makes a ton of sense.
Right now, I have early teenagers and a tween still, and sometimes they'll go away for a week to camp and they'll come back and they look, 3 inches taller and just broad, just different. And I think, gosh, you're doing such a lot of work right now just growing. It does make me feel sympathy for what can sometimes be challenging days of who am I going to get out of the box today, angel or demon from beyond, basically. And there's a lot of reason for this. It makes a ton of sense when you just look at the pace at which they're growing and changing.
Right. So Louise Bates Ames wrote this series of books in the 80s that were actually recommended to me like in the 2000s. They're still around. Have you seen them? They're like, Your 1-year-old, The Fun-Loving Fussy, Your 2-year-old, Terrible or Tender. There are these little slim volumes, and there's one for each year. So they're dated in a lot of ways. They definitely assume like mom is a primary caregiver and dad goes off to work. They assume that there's normal, I'm using that term in quotes, normal behavior for a boy or a girl, normal ways to behave.
Amy is, for the record, actually making quoties.
I'm air quoting. Yeah. So be advised, right, that not everything about these books is perfect, but it does sort of play out this idea. So she said, I thought this was interesting. She said, Your 4-year-old was wild and wonderful. And she wrote, We have found the boy and girl of this age to be joyous, exuberant, energetic, ridiculous, ready for anything. And she actually wrote that 3-year-olds were friend or enemy, and then 5-year-olds, I don't have the 5-year-old title, but it would be like nice or not so nice. These books, if you look at them on the shelf, that was her whole thing. Like 1's great, 2's terrible, 3's great, 4's terrible, or the other way around. And sometimes people reject them because like, well, my 4-year-old was terrible, but it doesn't matter. You might be reading the 6-year-old book might sound more like your 7-year-old or your 5-year-old, but they just hold you in this like, yep, this is what happens now. They're going to be kind of like this for a little while, and then they're going to change into something else.
Well, Jerry Seinfeld has a great joke that I've quoted before, that every year it's great because when you have kids, every year you're like, all right, I'm ready for this to be done, whatever it is. I'm ready to see what's next from 2 to 3. Like I'm all set, thanks, with the 2-year-old behavior. Let's see what 3's all about. And obviously calendar years and development have no correlation. It's like after 365 days, a new door closes and something else begins. That's not how it works.
Right.
But in general, there are eras of childhood that you're kind of like, I'm all set with this 2-year-old. It was adorable while it lasted, but I'm ready for 3, whatever it brings.
Can't wait for the box to show us something else one morning. Right.
Yeah.
Right. And they do.
They absolutely do. And I have a 4-year-old niece right now, just turning 5, but she is one of those kids who's just got like, her personality is at a 12 all the time. And she is Miss Large and in charge, she who must be obeyed. And it is so funny to be around her. But then I think like, oh, her mom's got to take her home at the end of this. Like she's got to deal with all this stuff. This is every day's bath time. This is every day's dinner. And for me, it's the show. And I just like, I can't wait to see it. I love it so much. But you do remember like, right, that show's going on 24/7 at their house.
One of the reasons people say, like, you shouldn't read these books, they're dated and whatever. There are reasons there definitely are dated. And this one, like, I'm less sure that this is a reason not to read these books because they do value what they call normal. Again, kid behavior as sitting nicely, listening to parents. And so the argument is, well, that's not proper child development. That's easy to handle. That's different. That's not what we're supposed to be attuning to. We're supposed to be attuning to our child's emotional development, not to whether they're docile. That's not the end result, is you're easy to handle. But when we're talking about how impossible a kid is being, that is what we're talking about, right? That doesn't mean that should never be considered at all. Like this kid is a nightmare and target every time we go. You're not a bad person for adding that to your list of concerns.
And life exists on a spectrum, right? There's a famous example that at this, religious college that it's very notable when you see it because the students all walk in a straight line and then turn to stay on the crossing sidewalks, right? That the idea is you see this super religious college and that the kids, whereas if you saw like a regular, again, air quotes, college campus, the kids are cutting across the lawns and they're wandering here, there, and everywhere. And what you want your kid to have is tools. Like you don't necessarily want your kid to always like walk in a straight line and then make a 90-degree turn and turn right as the sidewalk turns. You want them to be able to like cutting across the lawn and relaxing. There are different modes of operation and outcomes for kids. But it is useful to have a wide toolbox for kids. And I think speaking as the parent of children who have had maybe exceptional problems sitting still, yes, I don't love going to school every day and hearing about how my 5-year-old won't sit on the square. And that is like the greatest heartache of the teacher. And how could you have such a terrible child that they don't like to sit on the square? I'm like, yeah, could you maybe not judge my kid by sitting on the square? It's like judging a fish's ability to ride a bicycle. It's not useful. But at the same time, I want to push my kid to be able to sit as still as that child can possibly sit, because that's a skill that helps them function in the world. And so I understand that you don't only want to judge kids by the rigors of walking in a straight line and turning 90 degrees, but it's a useful metric at a certain point for how our kids are doing and functioning.
I feel like there might be two different things that get lumped together. Like a kid who, quote, sits nicely is a regulated kid. And there are kids who can't sit on a square but are completely happy-go-lucky and...
good point. Very good point.
They don't necessarily go together. And then there are probably kids who are extremely dysregulated who are good at sitting still. And there are kids who are extremely dysregulated who are like,
That's a very good point. And that's exactly right. That I think that what you want to get at underneath this all is not life is sitting on the blue square every time you're asked, but is your inability to sit on the blue square part of a dysregulation that is a problem for you as a child? Connecting it not to outcomes, because you can almost certainly see also North Korea, like get people to do almost anything by being really, really strict and scary with them. Probably there are kids for whom this wouldn't work, but most kids you can browbeat into behaving correctly. But we know that we don't want that relationship, like a scary browbeater so that you appear to other people to be normal no matter how dysregulated you are inside. We want to meet them at some point where it's like, we want you to be the most regulated version of yourself for your own personal happiness. And then we want you to be able to like cut across the lawn sometimes.
It's like, I'm going to quote Rebecca Onion here. She's a senior editor at Slate. She wrote about the Louise Bates Ames books and why they're maybe still useful these days. So I'll put the link in the show notes. And she wrote, reading an Ames book, you get the idea that she has the parent's happiness in mind as much as the child's, an attitude that cuts against the intensive parenting norms of 21st century America.
But I want you to even finish that sentence, because it says the intensive parenting norms of 21st century America that seem to demand parental sacrifice at all costs.
Right. If your kid's having a meltdown in Target, then you're not doing a good enough job parenting or attending to their emotional needs, and you need to read more articles instead of, you've got a kid who's impossible probably for 6 months, and then it will get better.
And this has been a touchstone for my parenting when I was trying to like sleep train my kids. My sister-in-law's mom is a pediatrician, and I was asking her a lot of questions at the time about how to do it and how to do this and that. And she said from the very beginning, I like to take a 50-50 approach. So it's 50% your needs and 50% the child's needs. So the child needs sleep, but you also need sleep. So you might be able to stay up 24 hours a day and like sleep train your child so that they sleep perfectly. But that's not good for you. You can't stay up. You have to get sleep too. And so I think of that all the time to this day, is this idea of, yes, I want my child to be emotionally healthy, but not by throwing my emotional health in a threshing machine to get ground up.
Right.
Like I have to be happy as well. So we can all sacrifice ourselves entirely to make sure that our kids' needs are met. But that's not good fundamentally for the health of either one of us in the long term.
Well said.
Thank you. I got it. Shout out to Dr. Fayette. She's the one who told me that early on.
Okay, we'll be right back. All my kids learned to swim when they were little. It was super important to me that they be confident and safe in the water. There was only one problem with that: taking them to swim lessons. I mean, the pools were freezing. There were always cranky adults doing laps right there. And it was definitely not, for any of us, what you would call fun.
Amy, heard. But now there's Goldfish Swim School. Goldfish takes a really thoughtful approach to swim lessons, combining research-based teaching with a warm, kid-friendly environment that actually helps kids thrive in the water.
Every detail at Goldfish is thoughtfully designed to create a golden experience, from shiver-free, warm indoor pools to comfy waiting areas for parents to professionally trained lifeguards on deck.
Goldfish uses an approach called the science of swim play, which combines guided play with proven teaching techniques to help kids learn to swim, build water safety skills, and gain confidence, all at their own pace. Lessons are designed to meet kids exactly where they're at.
If you've been thinking about swim lessons or just wondering where to start, this is a great opportunity. Right now, Goldfish Swim School is offering a waived membership plus your child's first lesson free at participating locations.
Just visit goldfishswimschool.com/free to find a location near you and enroll using promo code FREE.
That's goldfishswimschool.com/free, promo code FREE.
You know that thing where you get an amazing pair of shoes at a really great price and want to tell everyone about it? Yeah, so do we. Here at Designer Shoe Warehouse, we'll give you something to brag about, like the latest styles from brands you love, or the trends everyone's obsessing over, or shoes that make you feel like, well, you. So go ahead, show off a little. Find shoes that get you at prices that get your budget. Head to your DSW store or DSW.com today. DSW, let us surprise you.
And now, a list of things that used to be fine, but now your tween finds totally embarrassing, from the What Fresh Hell podcast.
Putting notes in their lunchbox.
Could you stop doing that?
Asking them how their day was.
Can we talk about this later?
Being seen in public with you in any context.
Could you just stand a little farther away from me?
Any form of singing. We're not gonna take it. No.
Oh, Mom, please stop.
Preparing their favorite foods.
I don't like chocolate chip pancakes anymore.
Smiling of any sort.
Cut that out, please.
Your humorous use of emojis.
Heart eyes? Really, Mom?
Making conversation with their friends.
This is so embarrassing.
Trying to take their picture.
Are you done? This is so humiliating.
Giving them a ride to school.
I'll just walk from here.
Attempting to discuss current bands.
Seriously, I don't even know who One Direction is.
The way you breathe.
It's very annoying.
This has been a list of things that used to be fine, but now your tween finds totally embarrassing. From the What Fresh Hell podcast.
Hey, honey, that's as cool as Gryffindor.
I've never been so embarrassed in all my life.
So I wanted to go back to Amy's original question that started this episode. You know, I have a 4-year-old who's saving all this super difficult stuff from me. It seems to have come out of nowhere. And what do I do about it? And I have 2 bits of advice here that I think are really sound. One is from Louise Bates Ames, who wrote the books we've been talking about. She argued that kids in this dysregulated stage, which for her, she thought was more like 3.5 when this happens. But she argued just more alternate caregivers for a while. They should be with alternate caregivers quite a bit while this is happening. This is her speaking, to break up the power struggles between mother and child. Just spread it around. Don't feel guilty that your kid is nicer for your parenting partner than for you. Lean into it and you handle bath time for a while.
And you like the expression, and it's really useful, drop the rope. You and the kid are playing tug of war. And so this is the solution, is to drop your side of the rope. You're not playing. And I want to acknowledge, I remember when we started the podcast, I think I had a 2-year-old. My kids were really little and your kids were, you were always maybe 5 years in the future, right?
Yeah. My youngest and Margaret's oldest are about the same age. And then my oldest was 5 years older than that.
That's right.
So I had kids 5 years ahead of you, at least.
Yeah. So your oldest is probably close to 10 years older than my youngest. So you were in the future from some of this stuff. Mm-hmm. And I remember you talking about how when your kids kind of turn on you and do this kind of behavior that Amy is talking about, that it would hurt your feelings. And I remember so clearly kind of laughing about that at the time. Like, really? It hurts your feelings? Because I was dealing with a 4-year-old who was like, I don't yike you, mommy. And I would just laugh at it. Of course, haha, who cares? I think it's really important to acknowledge that this can be very painful, this behavior, because I didn't think it was painful when my 4-year-old did it, but I definitely think it's painful when my 14-year-old does it and my 10-year-old does it. And I think that some people probably find it painful when their 4-year-old or 2-year-old does it. And that this is another reason why spreading the caregiving out, that sometimes that feeling of only I can do it, only I know what my child likes and needs, is very powerful for us as well. But it's a dangerous game, being the only person who, because the pain of that person turning on you is exponentially painful if you're the only person getting it. Does that make sense what I just said?
Yes. I have a truth bomb for you. This is Tova Klein, who we're going to have on the show this fall. She's the director of the Barnard College Center for Toddler Development. And this is what she says.
Woo woo. I'm a Barnard grad, so I love to hear from her.
She says this totally yes, that when your kid is in this regulated, dysregulated stage, if you have somebody else that kid can be spending more time with for a little while, go for it. She says the message still is the more you're with the children, the better, but that's not what the data shows. This is Tova Klein. It's true for infants.
Oh, I love this. This is just what I was talking about.
She says it's true for infants with maternity leaves, but when your kids get older, it's the quality of time you spend. Here's the part I'm underlining, with red pen 3 times. The child cannot be the full focus of a mother's life, the sole focus of your identity, because then when a child's having a normal but challenging period, you feel terrible. And you don't want that for yourself, and you certainly don't want that for your child.
I remember at my first job out of college, I was working as a paralegal temp, the law office temp, basically. And I was kind of, gold star mode and running around and being like, I got it. Oh, they said I did a great job. Oh, I stapled it perfectly. Oh, they were so happy with the copies I made, and kind of in that mode. And this rather grizzled guy who became a good friend of mine eventually, who'd been there a long time. And he said, if you take their praise, you have to take their criticism. And his whole point was, if you get too attached to being like, I get a gold star for my good work, when they're like, you messed this up, you idiot, it's going to crush you. But guess what? You're not an idiot when you do it wrong, and you're not brilliant when you do it correctly. You're doing a job. You're a human interacting with the world. You're going to do some things well. And I never really thought about how much it applies to being a mother, too, that if you accept the premise that it is your job to make everything about this child's life go well, you're setting yourself up to run into the biggest brick wall, because it's not all going to go well. And guess what? You don't have that much control over how it turns out or how it goes. And you also, voice from the future, give that child a tremendous amount of control over your emotional health if you hand to them, my happiness depends on how you turn out.
Well said.
It's not going to go well. They're going to stab you in the heart with that when they're 12, and it's going to kill you.
They don't really want to think they have that sort of control over you, even if they do. So if you're really, I'm talking about when your kids get older. Yeah, they don't like to see you upset.
That's such a good point. It is too much for your children to think they have that amount of emotional control. And I do think that I'm fortunate that I have a sister who lives close by. We kind of sister wives our kids to a certain degree. My kids are with her kids are with me. And my husband, after I think a period of being very busy, especially post-pandemic, I feel like we are very much 50-50 parents in our kids' lives. I'm happy to be traveling this week and he's home with them. The idea that we are all responsible for you, and also you don't have power over any of us either, because we all exist outside of you. It feels very emotionally healthy in a way that I don't think I had that relationship as easily when my kids were younger. And I had 3 kids in 4.5 years, and I lived and died by those kids. I was on such an emotional roller coaster all the time. And I will say from the future, I'm very glad I got off of it.
You know, and it's not as easy as, no. Aunt Kate is going to take you to karate today. Like your 4-year-old who's having their limbic leap might not like that. They might have a huge meltdown about that because they are dysregulated and you are their safe place. This isn't necessarily going to go like immediately smoothly, like you're going away for the weekend.
But let's go back to what you said about meditation and the plumb line. This doesn't happen in 30 days. This isn't like, wait, actually, this is making me more stressed. Like, of course it is in the short term.
Right.
But I think in the times that I have found myself most troubled by my relationship with my kids have been the times where I am the most deep in and enmeshed in my relationship with my kids. I think that's a fair statement, that the times where, and listen, there have been times where I needed a certain grader to pass a test to get out of that grade, or I wanted this kid to learn to ride a bike, or I wanted this kid to get their scouting thing that they needed to accomplish, whatever it was. And I was extremely dialed in and invested because it is important. And what I'm not saying is like, let go, mom.
Right.
You're so uptight and you're so overly into your kid, mom. And that's the problem, mom. And if you would just stop, it's not what I'm saying. But I think it's always useful to calibrate for yourself, like what is causing the amount of conflict that we have right now? And is there room for one or both of us to drop the rope or take a step back and say, we are so up in each other's faces with stuff right now. Are there ways to take a step back? Or do I just say, my kid is limbic leaping and I recognize that, so I'm going to work on myself and taking deep breaths when the emotionality and craziness.
I have a completely unproven theory about this.
Hit me. I love an improvement.
I have written about this, but I'm not a neuroscientist. I've just observed it in my life, having more than one kid, that your kids go through these periods of dysregulation and they can start on a dime, right? They just all of a sudden one morning are crying about raisin bread and you're like, wait, you love raisin bread. What are we doing? But just as suddenly, in my experience, that same kid will be like, good morning, come down the stairs. And you're like, who's this? After you've been spending 6 months with the Wicked Witch of the West, all of a sudden your kid is completely compliant and nice. That can happen just as suddenly. That's part 1. And part 2, that is about when another one of your kids will pick up the baton and become the dysregulated kid. I feel like kids sense that it's like, it's your turn to be impossible, and now it's my turn to be impossible. And they're like, okay, I've had a good long run. I'm almost 3 now, so here, I'll let you have this 7-year-old, and you're going to start falling apart about math homework every night. Enjoy it. That they just they know they can't be more than one of these at a time, so they take turns.
I want to talk as 2 Irish ladies about the changeling. That like there is a mythical idea of the changeling, right? This is a fairy or a demon who comes and takes your child and replaces it. It's a piece of lore, and they've made...
What do they replace it with? And there's another kid. It's still your kid. Still looks like your kid, but they've been replaced by what? Like a fairy version of your kid? What do they get replaced with? It's just something. It only looks like your kid, but it's not them anymore.
There's been a movie called The Changeling. Like it's an idea, right? That your child has been replaced with another child.
While you slept.
By a fairy, or maybe it's like a demonic possession kind of idea. I should read more about changelings because I reference it sometimes. But this, like, Mrs. Torrance isn't home right now. This is the same idea that there's a reason why the vampire myth, right, is that a vampire can't come in unless you invite it. That is a myth that gets to, you have to invite trouble into your life. These myths and these horror characters exist because of something that we see true, right? That we invite trouble in, that we invite bad people into our lives. That's the vampire myth. And the changeling is, why is my 4-year-old suddenly a nightmare? It's a changeling.
Oh, it's a different kid, right?
It's a different kid. It must be that the fairies came and took my sweet child and replaced it with this monster child, because I don't recognize this child.
That might be incredibly healthy, right? Like if you were, an Irish bog person 250 years ago, you'd be like, maybe it's a changeling. Anyway, and keep sweeping your floor. Then you wouldn't be like, I have to read more books. I have to change my parenting. I have to do all this. It's just sort of like, yeah, it seemed really different all of a sudden.
The fairies came and switched out my lovely normal child with this beast. So also, Amy from Facebook, I want you to consider that it was a changeling, that your child has been possessed by a fairy and is a changeling, but much more likely.
And are they coming back?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how the changeling works.
We need more changeling research.
All right, we're going to do a whole other episode on changelings, but I just think it's funny to think that for millennia, people have been saying, where is my sweet child? And back in the day, they were like, the changeling came.
It's the fairies that took him.
But now we have the Barnard Center for Child Research, and we have all sorts of other experts who can walk us through and help us solve
What do you
this.
think about my idea, though, that they kind of like your kids change places, and so they like hand off the baton, and one of them is impossible, and then they get nice, and that's about when the next one turns impossible.
Yeah, well, that's why my brother famously said, when I had a baby, how's it going? And I said, I have good days and bad days. And he said, well, have more kids, then you can have good days and bad days on the same day. And it's true. Like, right, there's always somebody giving you a hassle. Always.
Right. But it doesn't mean you're doing something wrong.
But I also think definitely doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. And it does sometimes, when you have multiple kids, help with the dropping of the rope. Like, I can't hold 3 ropes and play tug of war with all you people at the same time,
Yeah.
And I do like our solution overall, that is, let it go a little bit more. I think that's sort of the key to this, is rather that sometimes when we see something change, our solution is like, we got to get in there. And then I think what we've come to is we got to take a step back instead.
Because when they all of a sudden turn impossible, you're like, what am I doing wrong? I had to fix this, or else I'll have an impossible child forever. But really, it'll probably be for about 6 months, and then they'll be completely nice again. And then it'll probably happen again.
Or there'll be some different kind of horrible. That's also possible.
Right.
But whatever it is, don't worry. It's going to change again.
Just go with it. It'll change again. Just when you figure it out, it'll change again. That's right.
Totally solved, Amy. Friends, we are looking forward to seeing you out on the road this fall. Our first show is right around the corner in Charlotte, North Carolina on the 18th. Find all of our fall tour dates on our website, whatfreshhellpodcast.com.
Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll talk to you next week.
Talk to you next time. Thanks.